copy of the agenda. I apologize. I am in a car, so I'm not moving. So but we're gonna try and make this thing happen here. So why don't we go ahead and do a roll call? We're gonna call the meeting order, do a roll call. Heather, if you could help us make sure that everyone identifies where they are, municipality of where they're at, that would be appreciated. So we have it for Zoom.
Yeah, excellent. I'm going to start the recording. So we do have CTN here with us tonight. So they are recording and this is live. I also like to do a Zoom recording as backup. So I'm going to begin that now.
Recording in progress.
All right. And then I will do roll call. So Stephen, here. Jennifer.
I am present and I am in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Great. Alan.
Yes, I am here in Damray, France, Burgundy.
And Sarah thought that she might not be able to make it tonight, so we'll see if she's able to show up or not. Jeffrey.
Hi, I'm here and I'm in Ann Arbor.
Okay. Rita.
I'm here in Ann Arbor.
All right. Camilla.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Nice to see you. Let's see. Alice.
I'm here in Ann Arbor.
Frank.
I'm here in I don't know what is a municipality around here.
Antrim County.
Eastport, but we only have 2 traffic lights in this county.
I think you're in Antrim County, Frank.
Antrim County, right? Okay, there we go.
Sort of a famous county in the role of presidential politics.
Well, there
Record Randy lives just down the road.
there speaks a future governor, right? He knows his counties.
Adam.
Adam, I am here in Lansing.
Erica Briggs. And she actually has Transportation Commission right now, so she's not able to join. And Councilmember Dish.
Excuse me, I am here. I am in Ann Arbor.
All right.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Heather. So we're going to go into the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of tonight's agenda. Heather sent it out a little while ago. Please take a look at it, see if there are any questions or qualms about tonight's agenda. We have a fairly robust series of updates and some other items, but take a look, and when someone is ready, if we could have a motion to approve the agenda, that would be appreciated.
I'll move.
All right. Thank you, Jen. Can we get a second?
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. All in favor of approving the agenda as written, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Excellent. Thank you. With that, we're going to go into approval of the minutes, and the minutes are linked into the agenda from the last meeting. We do have, we moved this meeting in particular because we had a conflict with City Council. I think that was the right move, but take a look at those minutes from a little while ago, see if you have any issues. And whenever somebody's ready, if we can make a motion to approve, that would be great.
I move.
Moved by Rita,
Yes.
seconded by Frank. Excellent. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right. Excellent. In that case, we're going to go into public comment. Do we have any members of the public who are joining us this evening, Heather?
We sure do. And we have Robert Black's hand raised. So go ahead, Robert.
Thank you, Heather. Good evening. It's very nice to see you all again. I was really glad to see the good progress you made last month in the July meeting, especially the good work of the Liberty Plaza Working Group, and tonight the inspiring example of Royal Oak Centennial Park. I trust you all had a moment to review the written public comment material I submitted. Briefly, it's a reiteration of the 3 key points I've made in earlier meetings over the past year and a half, and also laid out in some detail in the RFI response our team submitted. Number 1, learn from the past. In the RFI response, we mentioned 2 things that influenced the Central Park and Civic Center Commons. The 1974 sesquicentennial has a wealth of historic and future vision material that has been shaping Ann Arbor toward its bicentennial in 2024. And influenced by the great visionary of New York City's Central Park, the two sons of Frederick Law Olmsted, the Olmsted brothers, created a dynamic vision for Ann Arbor's own park system in June 1920. Small steps in the present. The initiating committee, exemplified by the growing efforts of the Green Team, has been taking small steps to gain partners and to teach basic ideas about food and native plants within the context of the library lot, along with other stewards of the plantings of Liberty Plaza and the Kempf House. You'll hear more about this evening from Alan and Rita about how this effort is gaining ground, so to speak. One key strategy here is to relieve the contentiousness of the all or nothing removal of cars from the Library Lane surface parking lot. An easy incremental solution shown in the diagram I submitted is to start small with the removal of only 12 parking spaces in the northwest corner. This area would then become the focus of regular activating events in concert, again, so to speak, with the ongoing events like Sonic Lunch at Liberty Plaza, effectively raising the Ann Arbor public's awareness about the center of the city. And third, inspire a future vision. Inspired future visions were put forth by many back in 2010. 10 years later, the task force's report brought even more detail to a vision for the Commons. Examples like the Kaiser Center in Oakland, California, an award-winning green roof, really, built on top of a 5-story parking deck. Bryant Park, constructed over the stacks of the New York Public Library, shows an urban transformation from a drug-laden, undesirable place into a year-round safe and delightful attraction for people from all walks of life. So I have lobbied before that the work of the Council of the Commons is to learn from the past, test the waters of the present, and begin to forge a more specific vision for a preferred future in the heart of this city. In the material I submitted, there is an example of a tally of ideas that came directly out of this past efforts of many people. Please take this to heart as you deliberate on how each of you will individually and collectively guide our community to its most meaningful future. Have fun and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Any other members of the public?
That's it.
Okay, excellent. And Robert did submit an item that is attached to the agenda if folks are interested in reviewing. With that, we'll close out public comment. We will go into member updates. There are a number of items here. The first is the Liberty Plaza update. Heather, who's planning on submitting or talking about this item?
Alice has her hand up, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, just a quick technical thing. When I pulled up the agenda that was sent most recently, the hyperlinks weren't available because it wasn't on Legistar, I believe. So I can't see any of the attachments at this point unless I go into Legistar, and I don't want to be messing around with 3 different sites. So I just wanted to make that clear that there may be others that don't have an immediate reference to the documents that are attached.
Yeah, the whole agenda is in Legistar, so any documents that are attached have to be a document that's within Legistar. It's one of the quirks of the system, so the only way to link up to it is in Legistar.
So in theory, you should be able to look at the agenda and then click on the hyperlinks. Is that correct?
Right, if you're in Legistar, but I just opened the attachment from the email that we got late, and that it says hyperlink, but it's not there. So I'll have to spend some time going into Legistar when we have a time.
Okay.
Alice, if you look to the left of the word hyperlink, there's a number 22-1416.
I know.
That if you click on it, that should work.
Well, it might. We'll see.
Okay. Who submitted this, the Liberty Plaza update?
That is an update from Mr. Tahoney. So that's a written report that came from city staff that was passed to me from Mr. Tahoney.
Okay.
So I don't think anybody was necessarily going to provide an update on it, but I know that you and Councilmember Briggs are part of that group. So if there's anything that you wanted to add to that, you could.
I confess I've not read the written report yet, but I think that the work group itself, you know, participation I've had in it has been productive. You know, there's been struggles with recruiting city staff to support the effort. You know, we are in a very competitive labor market right now, and I think that the city has suffered from that problem as well. I think that Mr. Honey is doing a good job at trying to further the concepts that he put forth in terms of short-term activation and connection with community services that, you know, he had intended around Liberty Plaza. You know, not, I mean, read the report, I can't speak to that part, but I think that overall, you know, the working group as we've had it thus far has been helpful. It's been limited, but helpful. And I encourage us to give it some time to try and move things forward.
Who is on that working group, Adam?
There are a couple of non-city, it's mostly city staff, and then other stakeholders from other departments of the city. I think the police department is represented in, so public safety, fire department. I think there are some folks from the parks department. You know, not telling this up and having had limited meetings. It's mostly a few stakeholders and then representatives of various city staff.
And that is working with the $100,000 budget that's from the recovery federal funds.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep. And I really think that the majority of that money is really intended to do things that the Parks Department cannot currently do because of revenue limitations. And so, you know, I know that they have their intent when they first started was to hire individuals to help do some of this work. And I know that has not gone as easy as had hoped, as they had hoped. And so I think the goal is to continue to try and move that forward and accomplish the goals around short-term activation. Actually, frankly, many of our shared goals around the total block, but it's not going quite as fast, I think, as anyone would like, including the folks involved.
Yeah,
You know what
I wonder whether
Excuse-
anyone participate in the Sunrise program that was a couple days ago.
I
That
don't
looks
know.
very, very interesting. And the dance program that's coming up looks very, very interesting also, that they've had for a couple of years. I did notice in the city newsletter this the recruitment, the outreach for people to do program in Liberty Plaza, which is a good idea. That should also be looked at for the library lot as well.
Adam, I don't know if you can see since you're on your phone, Rita and Alice both have their hands up.
Yeah, please feel free. I don't know which one of you was up first, so I apologize, but Rita, why don't you go first?
Okay, thank you. My question is what the plan is for the activating the Liberty Plaza. Is that something that can be shared with us since we actually have overlapping goals?
I think it should be shared. I don't know if it's in Mr. Tahoney's report, not having read it. Have you had a chance to take a look at it?
I did read it, but I feel like it's more like a report of actions taken as opposed to what's the plan, what's the goal,
Okay.
and what are the thoughts of how to reach those goals. And it doesn't interdigitate with the center of the city as far as I can tell. So
Okay.
so I'll just make an observation that the events that appear to be recruited, there are really only two that I recognize as incremental to things that have been going on. So the things that have been going on are some regular Friday pizza events and the Sonic lunch. The sunrise event, I was there. It was fabulous. It was fun. There were a lot of people. The young people were wonderful, and the music was excellent. But so that's just an example of like one event. And so my question is just like, where's it going? How's the recruiting process going? Who makes decisions on the funding for it? That kind of thing would be nice for us to know, I think.
Yeah. All right. So why don't we ask for some of those questions from Mr. Mahoney? I would not like to speculate around some of those points here. So if you could put together an email, we can ask Heather to shoot it off to Mr. Mahoney, and
That'd be great.
That okay?
Yep, and Rita did start compiling some questions already, which I did send to Mr. Mahoney, and he did respond that he's getting the answers. So he'll respond to whatever questions you have.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alice, I think you're up next.
Yeah. Just a little sidebar. We haven't seen Mahoney at one of our meetings for a long time, but I know he's very busy. One thing, another question to Mr. Mahoney might be what the job description is for the downtown parks supervisor position. It doesn't, I mean, I know they're having trouble, but I'd like to know what they would expect the supervisor to do.
Why don't
Yeah,
we
I can.
put that in?
I could probably get that. It had been posted, from what I understand. So there is a job description that's put together. Or there should be.
Yeah.
So
I
can
don't
ask
usually
them.
look at the job postings for the city.
Yeah.
But that's all right now, that's all I wanted to ask about Rita. And I have some similar questions to Rita's, but hers will do.
Yeah. Are there other questions around this topic? All right. Well, in that case, we'll go into the next member news and updates. And that is around the initiating committee Project Grow poster. I think, Alan, you submitted this. Did you talk a little bit?
And
Yes,
I will
please do.
share the poster as soon as I can pull it up.
Thank you.
Mhm. Sorry, I'm having a little glitch. You can go ahead and get started, but I will keep on working on sharing this poster.
Thanks, Heather. Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. The Project Grow, which I guess everybody must know about, has been going on for 50 years. That might give us some forethought that at some point in 50 years, the center of the city will be going on and we will be having a 50-year anniversary. But the initiating committee put together a poster to recruit and draw attention to the center of the city development, be part of growing the center of the city. And it has a map of the basic areas that we're talking about so that people know what it is that is called the center of the city, the block and the two particular areas of public land, the library lot and the Liberty Plaza and Kemp House area. And it identifies three outreaches. One is to join the Green Team, which has been doing this amazing garden work. And I think Rita will talk more about the gardens, which also has some graphics. And to invite people to attend our own Council of the Commons meetings. And while Robert is exemplary in that, we do not really have the attention of the Ann Arbor public. And so this poster leaflet that will first be put out this Saturday at the Leslie Science Center. I might note parenthetically that Robert Black was part of the team that designed the Leslie Science Center. He's very rooted in our town. So there'll be maybe 1,000, who knows, a lot of people at this project Grow, which began with one little plot and now is just all over the place. And maybe that will likewise be the development of the commons. And thirdly, like for the Liberty Plaza that we just saw from Mr. Mahoney, host events on the commons to invite people to look at this space as a space for their events. And we have a picture of a couple of the events, what was done on the library lot, and also the Sonic Lunch. And in terms of public meetings, there's some pictures and the green team and the gardens and so on. And finally, to give a focus on the website for the initiating committee, the Ann Arbor Community Commons.org, which gives a lot of the past information, and the invitation is how people can become more involved in this whole process with the QR code and their attempt to outreach. And so we're going to have a lot of copies of this to first begin at the Project Grow, and then to be able to distribute as a leaflet and as a poster and post up around wherever we can. So this is an initial outreach for the community commons, both Liberty Plaza and the library lot. And so you can see that. If there are any questions and suggestions of how this is sort of an initial outreach poster, leaflet, and fellow members of the Council of the Commons, if you have suggestions of how to make it, improve this or make it more focused or better, please right now raise your question or make your suggestion, or when other appropriate to communicate. So we're going to have this Saturday at the Leslie Science Center, and then continuingly, and with whatever revisions people might suggest, ongoing. But this is to make the center of the city more public to the public. I guess that's my little presentation. This was put together by a couple of us, Amy June Rowe, who helps with our website, communitycommons.org. And it came to us through Catch a Fire of volunteer professionals from all over the country who want to help in good ideas. And Robert Black worked on this as well. Any questions, comments, suggestions? Come to the Project Grow on Saturday. It's going to be amazing. There'll be a lot of different booths there, but an exposition of the growing Project Grow over 50 years. And there's a picture. Be part of growing the center of the city. That's what we're doing.
And Adam, Jennifer has her hand up.
Oh, yeah.
I've had mine up for 5 minutes, but
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Adam,
that's right.
Jennifer,
can
and
go.
Alice have their hand up.
I have a quick question. My only question was when you said attend, and I can't scroll down, but attend the Council of the Commons meetings. So that's our monthly Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a separate meeting, but it was the same.
No, that's us.
Because I think that could be really confusing. So thanks for clarifying, Ellen. Appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, first Thursday on the Zoom. And I hope that address is a easy way to find the meeting, and maybe we need to refine that. I'm kind of challenged in finding just where our meetings are sometime, but it would seem like the a2gov.org and looking for the Council of the Commons directs us to the Legistar, and then a person to how to find the phone number to get in to listen to the meeting.
Alan, we have our own, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
The Council of the Commons has their own webpage within the city's larger website. So I'll send you the shortened link for that. I think that would be a more direct avenue for people to find how to get to these meetings.
We in our revised next edition, we will make that improvement.
Thanks, Alan. Alice, you've got your hand up too.
Yeah, I have related to Jen's confusion and mine as well. First, a technical question. What does the QR code connect to?
I believe it connects to our website.
Whose website?
To the website of the initiating committee.
Okay, that seems strange, because you say for more information about the A2C2 initiating committee, and then you say, visit our website. Is that the initiating committee's website? But you seem to be promoting the Center of the City meetings too. And so it says you can sign up for updates, which you can do on the city website as well, updates on something. And it says donate. Are you soliciting donations for the initiating committee or the Center of the City project? Further, are you volunteering for the Center of the City, or are you volunteering for the initiating committee? It's very confusing, and I think there could be some more confusion than information here, because the prominent website is Ann Arbor Community Commons, but you're promoting the initiating committee, and it says nothing much about Center of the City except one line at the top of the poster. So I don't know really what your goal is, but we need to be clear about who we're talking about and where the money's going and where the information's coming from.
Well, the initiating committee was set up after the Center of the City Task Force made its recommendations to facilitate the carrying out of those recommendations.
It was kind of the opposite way around, Alan. Your initiating committee was set up before we had the Center of the City thing. So I think you really need to clarify some of this.
I take that under advisement. Just how would you suggest we better?
Do you want money to go to your organization, or do you want money to go to the Center of the City?
We are collecting funds. Actually, it is through the Library Green Conservancy, which is the 501c3, and that is in fact not mentioned here. But
I don't think that's
in the
correct.
website to be able to have benches and make improvements on the site, and also as we are trying to do, help in financing the development of the RFP, the request for proposals. The Council of the Commons itself is not a fundraising or funded or such entity. The only actual funding element that exists in this, besides the City Council looking to develop a request for proposals, is the Library Green Conservancy and the initiating committee itself, which has its bank account and provides insurance for programs that are there that we do, and such needs as arise. It's not a big financial operation, but when we have various programs, they get financed through the money that's raised through the initiating through the initiating committee.
I think there's a lot of, I'm still a little confused. Could either Frank or Rita respond about how funds are received and who receives them for the center of the city versus your initiating committee, which is a separate organization? How do people know where their money's going?
The Library Green Conservancy has an operating agreement with the initiating committee. My understanding is the initiating committee is a Michigan nonprofit corporation. Library Green is a 501c3 tax exempt organization, and so we can accept gifts in a tax exempt status. We have made, it's been some time now, but we have made transfers of funds that were designated for initiating committee projects from Library Green to the initiating committee accounts, and they're expended from there. I don't know if that helps clarify.
Well, it doesn't really, because Alan said that there's a separate bank account, so I don't really know how anyone knows
But, there
what's
is a
going
separate
where.
account, and my understanding is Library Green, the initiating committee has a donate button on their website, and people can donate to it. It's a nonprofit organization, but it's not. My understanding is that they cannot take a tax deduction for gifts to the initiating committee. I need to check myself on that, but I'm fairly sure about that.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
So I think, Alan, I think I think the feedback is probably good that things are clarified a little bit, and maybe clean up the poster a little bit to help clarify those things. Rita, did you have your hand up?
I have one more thing. When you say attend monthly Council of the Commons meetings, that's really important to put center of the city in front of it, because there's so much confusion about who's doing what and when. So that's one thing I would make sure to do.
Okay. Rita, did you still have your hand up? No? Okay. All right. We'll go on to...
Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say that I can see some of the confusion with respect to the fact that we've been verbally talking about the initiating committee, but that term does not appear on the poster. So yeah, I can see that we need to do some fine tuning of this and probably get some feedback from others outside of our group to see if that is understood as it's intended.
Yes.
I think it's down in the fine print, and that's it. But it says about
there
the
it is. Yep.
it says the A2C2 initiating committee. Who knows what A2C2 means, but I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says initiating committee, but they're two separate things.
Yep.
Yep. So it's good
Helpful.
feedback. Why don't we move on to the next item here under member updates? This is the green team signs. Who would like to display those and talk about them a little bit?
Rita, you should
Thank
have
you.
the ability to share your screen.
Right.
But if you don't, then I can see.
I'm going to do my best to pick the right thing here. Okay, here we go. Can you see document? Because I don't. Oh, there it is. Okay. So the green team is the group of volunteers who are working on planting plants, mostly native plants, in the center of the city. We have locations that are here. They're labeled N1, N2, N3, and C2 based on cardinal directions and kind of geographic space. So north, center, west, etc. But right now we're working on really 4 separate gardens. And we have members that are just members of the community who found us and decided that they wanted to join in. We have the group called Wild Ones, which is a native plant organization that's based here in Ann Arbor and also is a nationally organized one. And we are gradually developing these gardens. We would like to include for the public some information that they can learn about this gardening project. And we're basing it starting at this sign that is an informative sign about the parking structure, the underground parking structure, and what it entails. And we would like to place a sign that would describe the garden system. And I'm gonna show, let's see, you can say, I just want to point out here, this beautiful design that was made by Bob Greasy for the C2 garden to show clumps of plants that will be, that are planted, some are planted, some are in process of being planted here in the C2 garden. And that is specifically dedicated to the Wild Ones volunteer group. But we wanted to have some more interpretive kinds of signs. And we propose having some sturdy kinds of things like this one that's already there, but there's some similar ones that these are examples of. These are not designed for us to use, but just to show you the kind of structure and view that one would get from these. So I'm gonna, let's see. I want to do a new share and find my other document. I'm going to need some help, Heather. How do I close this one from your view and then get to?
Sorry, yeah, you should. It should be something that says stop sharing, like at,
there.
at the bottom.
I see.
See that? Okay,
Good. Stop share, and now I'll find my next one because it's a really nice sign. The wording for which was developed by Bob Greasy, and I think you'll find it something that you'll resonate to.
Rita, you might just remind people about Bob Greasy's role in the community, and it's really a national figure in many ways.
Right. Bob Greasy is currently the president of the local chapter of Wild Ones, and he is the volunteering for us at the center of the city, but he is the retired director of Mathi Botanical Gardens and the Nichols Arboretum. So excuse me while I'm still searching. He is a delightful person, and really his input is really, I feel, inspiring. You're looking at the same one, aren't you?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Sorry, but I saw it. So now I do go back to this.
Well, you
Okay,
had it
here we
there
go.
for a
This
moment.
is,
There.
that's not the one. Let me stop
No.
this again.
It's a different part
Sorry.
of the. Got a little sign in it.
Share screen. It's sticking with the one I chose first. Oof.
Oh, that's the one. That's the one that the next one that Bob Greasy's.
Are you saying the words that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not. Oh, I know why. Okay, never mind. Excuse me. Yeah. So I don't really want to say these words. I'd love to have you read them and think about what this could be for the center of the city. And that would be placed, I think, somewhere close to where you saw that first sign that's in the northwest corner of the entrance to the library lot surface. This is a conceptual design, so we're just showing you to give you an idea of what a direction that we would like to take with organizing information for people who would visit this space. I consider this a super order sign, and that there would be, meaning that it's just kind of like the general statement of our intent for the space, and that we would later have signs that would be more specific to plantings as a group, or very specific plants or projects that may be going on. and possibly some changeable signs over the future. So just to let you know that this is the kind of the direction that we'd like to go with this space, and that there could be some things like this actually in Liberty Plaza, where there are a number of garden spaces as well, which I'm sure that you're all aware of. So that's the presentation. That's our affiliation with Bob Greasy and the Wild Ones Group. And there I am. If anyone has questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you, Rita.
I'm gonna
Any
close.
questions for all three? I don't see any hands up here. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And so we'll close out member updates. And I think the first item is the Parks Advisory Committee presentation on the next section. So you can probably see the PAC presentation slide deck link there. I gave that presentation, and Stephen and Heather, or sorry, I'm sorry, Stephen and Erica were both part of it as from our group here. And that was 2 or 3 weeks ago now. Went very well, in my opinion. It was a really good update to PAC, and also an opportunity to reach out and make an ask to work together around this next phase of work. I think that they were caught a little off guard with a direct request, but I think by the end of our discussion, an understanding of a strong desire to work together, the benefit of doing a development as a joint organization, it felt to me that that was fairly well received. We've not gotten into sort of formal follow-up or anything like that, but wanted to update folks. Certainly take a look at the PowerPoint that's attached, and happy to take any questions. I did outline in that PowerPoint the work streams that we have, working groups going on, and also the feedback that we got from the RFI. And so I thought it was a good discussion. Certainly have to take any questions.
I guess just a point of clarification. Are we later in the agenda? I don't have the agenda in front of me. Going to be have an update on the RFP process. Is that on the agenda tonight as well?
It's on the agenda, yes.
Okay.
Alan, go ahead.
Thanks for that report, Adam. Is there somebody from the Parks Commission who identify themselves as particularly wanting to work with us or with the RFP yet, or is that just kind of in gestation? They're considering your report and seeing, how they might facilitate. I know the report did ask for input into the process of the developing the RFP. Has anything materialized in that direction, or I guess it's not humanized in that direction?
No, I think it's a good question, Alan. Nothing yet, but to be totally honest, we have not really pushed the issue yet either. We had a presentation. It was right around shortly after the 4th of July holiday, and I know July is a busy month for travel, and we really did push the issue. I think that we were pretty satisfied with the discussion that happened in the presentation, and we figured we would revisit it again this month at some point. We just have not done that yet, so I think that's on our task list.
We had asked, I think, Stephen, whether he made regular presentation as to the updating the Parks Advisory Commission on what's going on here. Is that sort of in process, that there be a regular liaison like Downtown Citizens Advisory Commission has a regular update to the DDA?
Certainly not having watched every Parks Advisory Commission, I cannot say for sure how Stephen provides some updates. I do trust that he is providing those updates. I think our effort was a little more deep. We talked a lot about the work over the last year. But I have, Stephen was a good advocate for us. It was in the meeting, was sitting on PAC at the time, as was Erica, and both were very helpful at helping us bridge a gap between PAC and the Center of the City Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
Yeah. Alice, get your hand up.
Yeah, I have I want to say first that I had a very positive feeling having watched the presentation live and the discussion at PAC. The lurking questions for me are about the RFP and how different a Parks RFP approach would be from what's unknown to me, the kind of structure of development that we would be using. Is there a difference? Is our project easily integrated into the park system and their management and their experience that they would have with development of parks?
Well, I'll just jump in here because it would be park staff. The way it stands right now, park staff would be developing the RFP. They would be managing the process, the design process. So they would be the project manager working to manage the consultant contract and working with the consultant on this effort. So once we have the money in place to do the design process, then it'll be park staff developing the RFP and it'll be issued through their department.
I think our goal in this, though, because I certainly hear what Heather is saying. I think our goal is to have a joint process, and that's what our request into Parks was that we have two strangely overlapping advisory bodies, and if there's a way to merge this together, I think that's in the best interest of the final product. And so
there are some follow-up things here. For instance, until now, I was under the impression that Heather and systems planning was going to be developing our RFP with the, obviously exploring the connections between parks. But Adam's presentation was more of a collaboration between us and parks. And I wonder why or how different those approaches would be and why we would not have, I guess, even greater control, because Liberty Plaza is a tiny little part and is a park, and is a designated park, or are we going to not only, do they have to raise the money, or do they have a budget line item when they do an RFP for parks? Is that a way that we have the money in place because it's from the park budget? Or is the only sharing going to be that we'll pay for it somehow and not until we have the money? This is very disturbing to me.
So I think I want to just emphasize none of these decisions have been made. I think that, it's very important. If we're running towards a $120,000 to $140,000 line item, 3/4 of which is privately funded, raised by external organizations, which I think is what we're headed towards. It's going to be important that the city and those external organizations, largely the Library Green Conservancy and the funders who are donating to this effort specifically, have an understanding as to where this is going to go, who's going to manage it, and I certainly feel a vested interest in ensuring there is a joint relationship to the RFP, and that it is not, we're not raising $90,000 plus of private funds without having some degree of input into this process. And I think that's fair and justified. I don't think anyone would see that as being unreasonable. So I would just say, our goal in this is we have a weird relationship, not set up by anyone here. This was a relationship. Actually, I think even that preceded council member Dish's tenure on council and others. We need to make the best of that relationship. It's a joint jurisdictional issue, and I think that the important thing is that we try and figure out how to work together while we continue to raise the money. And I have expressed to Frank and others who are directly engaged in the raising the money that I think it is reasonable and fair that as we continue to raise funds, and we are making progress on the private funding, fundraising as well, that we turn to firms like MKSK who submitted bids and have broken it out into multiple phases and applied cost estimates to those phases, that we utilize that as a guide to say, how can we phase in as we continue to raise funds? I don't think we're at the point now today where we should start working on start going out for the RFP. But I think actually from a funding perspective, we are not that far away, and we're making progress. And so I think that's an important consideration. The RFP or the planning process, as MKSK outlined, is 11 to 12 months. I don't think we need 100% of the funding in place on day one in order to pursue that. But if we can get 75% of the funding in place on day one, I think that is a reasonable reason to go out for RFP.
And who else thinks is thinking the way you are? I mean, who presses the button to say go?
And we have to. It's a negotiation, a mutual joint decision. I mean, certainly every member around this table would have input into that decision. I'm just expressing where I think my thoughts are at.
Still very unclear.
I don't think it's going to be a crystal clear process, unfortunately. I think that is by the sheer nature of the fact that you have two advisory committees that oversee the same jurisdiction and are making modifications to that jurisdiction. By nature, it's going to be a little bit gray.
Do you think that the special properties model is useful in developing this unique agreement, just like all of the special properties have unique agreements with the park system that we could have also?
I do. I totally do. I think I think the idea of the special properties that, Cobblestone Farms and Farmers Market and others, certainly some of the models the comparable communities work has revealed for us are all constructive and positive ideations towards a solution. My personal opinion is certainly not where we may land, but I think that I don't see that any of the urban parks, this one or the one on the Michigan DTE site, I feel like they're going to be different from the other neighborhood parks that we have across the city.
Yep.
And I really feel for the Parks Department in terms of their financial limitations. Frankly, I think they're quite real, and I think that if we are able to be successful with developing these urban spaces and activating them, we're going to need to come up with a different governance model that works. And I think that the special properties are a good example to lean on, and I think there are other examples. And we've certainly talked about some of those in the comparable communities work. So I don't know what the exact answer is yet, but my gut tells me we're not going to land in the same space that we are, for the neighborhood parks right now. And I think, frankly, we should also want to strengthen the work in the neighborhood parks too, that is within the Parks Department. I personally feel that's important. So,
and that's just to put it out there, that's a recommendation that this group can make. So if you wanted to put something on paper about a model, that could go forward to City Council to consider. So if you wanted to draw up on the examples that we have of special spaces like the farmers market, and propose something for the center of the city, that's something that would be appropriate to the role of this group.
I
Have we
think
not,
that's,
have we not proposed that through the city, the task force's recommendations that recommended us to make recommendations? We're getting sort of
well,
circular about this.
I think this is actually a great question, Alice, because I think actually formally the task force preceded the center of the city. And so the work may have been recommended in one way. I would actually encourage this group to, through the process, as I understand it from reading the MKSK proposal, which I feel, my gut tells me it feels like what we would see from a lot of, heavy hitting design firms. They're going to bake into that process. They explicitly call out that you're going to have ideation, site layout, community input, construction and design, and then you're going to have governance, sustainability. I would encourage us to, before we make a recommendation, to really go through that process. I really feel strongly that that people who do urban planning as a profession are the ones who are best equipped to tell us how we make this possible. And then we need to lean on that as credible third-party validation that we're going to modify the space in whatever way, shape, or form that we end up with. And we have these construction costs outlined, and we have the long-term maintenance and sustainability plan outlined, and we have revenue streams identified, hopefully more than one. And we can go to the community or whatever stakeholders those revenue streams affect and say, build our case. And we build a community of stakeholders that support that effort. So I would really encourage that we don't jump the gun on that. I think that's actually very important, that when we request something to City Council, we go with a full baked package, and that package is validated by people who have done this in other communities and been successful with it. Not being in the lane of our professional in this space, I feel like it is in our best interest to lean on those professionals. So
I think my last comment would be, I think if we don't get something that is tangible and visible, we will lose traction on the whole thing. And that's why the phasing, if we're talking about something that's going to happen another year from now, we need to have something that we can do, like with one of the events that are coming up, instead of closing streets and, squeezing things into Liberty Plaza. We need to be able to show how this is a more expansive view of what the center of the city could be.
I don't disagree with the idea of short-term activation, Alice, by any means. I think that what you're getting at, I think it's going to be important. And I actually think that we may hear a presentation from the Initiating Committee in September around the short-term activation. But I do want to say on the longer term, the pieces, I wouldn't say that we need to wait a year for those recommendations. That's why I like the idea. And I think Frank brought this up and pushed this more than anybody. And really, when you look at the breakdown of the MKSK proposal, this is quite feasible. There is phases baked in. So let's start those phases and get things going. And as we get them going, maybe we can update City Council, maybe not with a formal recommendation because we're in the process, but an update I think certainly is reasonable and feasible, and we'll build that momentum that you're talking about, coupled with short-term activation. And I'm, at least from what I understand about the Initiating Committee's short-term activation ideas, I'm excited to hear this update in September. And so let's give it an opportunity to bake itself a little bit here. I think we've got some good minds thinking about this. I think we got a few hands up. I don't know who's first, Rita or Alan. Rita, why don't you go first?
Frank was first.
Oh, is Frank's hand up? I apologize, Frank. My recording message is over your hand. Sorry. Frank, go ahead.
I just want to echo pretty much everything you've said, Adam. I think this is a unique dance that we're performing here. And knowing how clumsy I am on the dance floor, I think this is a good metaphor. I think it's really important that we, the Council of the Commons, we, the community of funders and the community broadly, find a way to work collaboratively and constructively with the parks people. You pointed out that it's likely that well over half of the funding for the RFP and the actual study is going to come from community sources, and we have to maintain and build confidence among those funders that this is going to be a collaborative approach, that we're going to build towards something significant here, and we're going to learn a lot in the process, and that process will build broader community support as we learn about this, publicize it, bring people in. Your idea that you've mentioned a couple of times, I'm not sure tonight, but forming an advisory committee of some of these funders, the block partners, Library Green, other organizations that are involved in this whole process, to work along with this study and along with parks. This has to be anchored somewhere in the city, obviously. But I think, Heather, you and I talked a week or so ago that in your time with the city, this is pretty unusual to have this much outside funding involved in a study that really anchored within the city government. And so this will be they'll be writing about this for decades, if we can pull this off and may become a model for how these kinds of collaborative efforts can be successful. So, but being in the middle of the fundraising, I'm concerned that we have something that we can confidently take to the funders, and that they will see the benefit of working collaboratively with the Parks Department. I wish I knew more about the Parks Department and where they're going. I agree with Adam that they are under tremendous pressure to maintain the 160 some parks they already have. But that's down the road. We need to get the plan and design before we can understand how it's going to be funded. But that'll be critical. So I'll just stop there. But this is all important conversation.
Thanks, Frank. Rita and then Alan.
I want to just call out another player that we haven't discussed tonight, and that is the DDA and their influence in the use of the parking structure surface for parking and how that interplays with the activation, the short-term activation. And so it's just, we can't lose sight of that. We have to include them as partners or somehow work this out so that there's a way that we know and can rely on using the space consistently. Right now, the gardening part works because there's no parking and no spaces, so that's great. But it's not exactly safe to walk through that space to do the gardening. It would be a lot easier if there weren't cars there. Just make that pitch. That's all I want to say right now.
Hear you on that, Rita. I think that's why I am particularly excited about this proposal from the initiating committee. I think this is going to be a big step forward for us. Alan, you're up.
Thank you. I hear really two different processes going on. From Heather, you said, Heather, that there won't be any even beginning of the writing of the RFP until the money is in hand. And that is a staff job inside the staff. And Adam is saying or reflecting from the Council of the Commons that this needs to be a collaborative process. And Frank is echoing that looking from the funders, that they sort of have to know what it is that they are seeking to fund. And I'm particularly concerned with how the Council of the Commons and more generally the public, or particularly the people who are asking to put money into this, have their voice as to what is the this. And I myself made some effort to formulate a number of elements that should be considered in the request for proposals, as well as to identify from what the ideas that have been put out, 20 different elements of the what is in the park, from fountain and playground to benches and stage to the civic center and the indoor functions of gallery and cafe and exhibit centers and so on, that how these ideas actually come into the process of formulating the request for proposals. Whether we can have some public hearing before the request for proposals is put together, that the staff who is working on this hears directly from the public, and after a draft of the request for proposals is made, that there is again public hearing somehow as to how people see, is this what we want to see developed? So that is what is the vision that is going to be realized, and that's a public question, not really a staff question. And so we need to work a little more on this sense of what is the cooperation, the collaboration, the realization of the initial central center of the city, Central Park and Civic Center, into the doing of it. And while I appreciated the sense of the MKSK response, in some way I felt that the Robert Black Associates had more of a local engagement of the public process in mind as to how this evolves. So I think that we need a little more, and maybe this is how we formulate some question to the city council when they actually become part of this. But anyhow, I am indeterminate as to what the process of collaboration and cooperation is, and how the just ordinary public gets their voice into, what is this request for proposals, what is to be created, and certainly the form of organization of the commons, which is not simply a ordinary city service, but is a user-involved management, more like a land trust or a conservancy of some sort that intersects the public and the governmental agency. So all that is kind of outstanding, and it is not simply a matter to be determined in staff, and then we are given, once they have the money for it, we're given the product.
So to clarify, the RFP that would be put out there is for a process. It's not for the final, what's going to be in the space. So it would be to hire a consultant to perform a process that is highly public and has a great deal of engagement to help us answer that question. What should go in the space, and how can we achieve that? Because there's a lot of ideas right now. The task force got as far as collecting a lot of ideas, and some bubbled up to the top, but it's still a large collection of ideas of how to transform the top of the library lane lot specifically. And so we need to narrow that down and determine what is feasible, as well as what is most valued, what people want most in that space. So that's what this process would involve. As far as developing a RFP, it is a staff function, so it would be staff developing it. We have a standard template. We would use that template. It would and it would be about the process that we want to go through, not, we want to, we wouldn't get as specific as like, we want to see if you can put a stage in, like it wouldn't be that. It would just be a process to figure out how we can transform the space. So hopefully that helps with your question, Alan.
Yeah, and Ellen, I want to just emphasize too. I think it's important. A lot of the RFP is a standard template. As Heather, we had a RFP working committee. We can talk about that in a minute, but the majority of the RFP is standard across the board. But there is a section that talks about scope and where we want to go. And I do think it's actually very important. I hear when you're talking about community and the community input and really I actually heard, I think, fairly similar things from both you and Heather. I don't think we want to predefine what it is that we think should be on this space. I think it's actually really important that the community tells us what they want on this space. This is a project for the community, and ultimately we not only do we want that because that's in the best interest of the community, we want the community to help us make this happen. And that's not going to happen if we tell them something. And so I think really being conscious of that as we write this RFP is going to be really important. And I think that's actually something that, Heather in particular can really help guide us on. I don't want to limit us on this. I think that's actually to our detriment.
Well, if there is a standard template, maybe that could be actually shared with us. What is this template? So that we know what in particular are the items that get checked off one by one. And what is the final vision has a lot of different elements in it. The particular part, as you know, that I have been championing or expressing in behalf of many people who feel it is an important part, is that the Civic Center is really a Civic Center building somehow integrated into this, or a set of functions that are four-season indoor as well as the outdoor park. And that idea has been difficult, I would say, to get purchase on, using the word in its multiple meanings. And so what is the breadth of vision that is included in what is to be considered as part of the explorations, and including our relation to the Noble House and the Carriage House and other spaces that are in our periphery, how those are integrated and included. Those are elements that should be in the RFP, that we should be able to have a technical group explore the feasibility of various options as to what the different costs are and so on. Similarly, we are told that nothing can be done on the surface of the parking lot because of warranties, and exploring the warranties, it's not exactly clear what that actually means. But if we want to do thinking on the surface of the parking lot, what are the costs involved and the technical elements? That should all be part of the technical assistance that we get from some technical group that is going to go more deeply than a group of citizens talking about, this is what I would like.
I actually agree with that sentiment completely, Alan, and that's why we need to hire a professional. So we do need to be able to answer those questions, and we cannot answer those questions. And I think we have run into dead ends when we tried to. Rita, you're up.
Thank you. So from this discussion, I take it that we will actually have two RFPs, the one that would initiate the process and a subsequent one that would take things further into actual design. Is that correct?
That not necessarily. So where we want to get with this process is a conceptual design for so it wouldn't be as detailed as engineering schematics, for example. That would be a next stage, but we would at least have a concept of what the space would look like that is broadly supported by the community, because that's not where we're at yet. You know, we have a lot of ideas. Again, the task force got so far with collecting ideas, generating excitement. So there was a lot of really good work that came forward with that, but it is still just a collection of a lot of ideas that could potentially be on that space. So we want to get to a concept that everybody in the community can stand by, you know, and is feasible on that space. And then we would move on from there. So there's always next phases typically, you know, to things before construction. So then once we have that down, and we'll have some preliminary cost estimates, that's what I'm envisioning that we would have by the end of this process. So we'd have some sense of what we were signing up for basically. And then there would be decision making about, do we want to move forward with that? And if so, that's when we get into doing the engineering schematics to move us forward and getting the money together to actually implement what the conceptual design is.
Okay. Okay. When you said process earlier, I thought you meant community process, and I thought there was a line around that. So we are talking about going further into technical kinds of things, or not deep technical, but at least conceptual design things. So
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a little clearer.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is a process because it has, I mean, this has to be highly engaged. You know, this is a really significant space in our community that has a, you know, a history to it that's been a little bit divisive, or, you know, quite divisive. And so what we want it to do is to be a process that brings the community together and something that everybody can agree to. And so what is the transformation of the space that everybody can stand behind?
If you look at, just to highlight this a little bit, if you look at the MKSK proposal, there's 4 phases broken out in it. The first is a site layout analysis. The second is a community input. The third is, I think, a conceptual design, and the fourth is sort of the cost and governance pieces that Heather gets into. And when I worked in the legislative process, you know, this was the first part of the planning phase. Then there was a second part, which was the engineering, and then there was the construction phase. And so I feel like, you know, what we're trying to accomplish is this first part of the planning phase, which allows us to go into the second part and hopefully into the construction phase thereafter. So,
right, you have to have a concept to begin with,
yeah.
and we don't have that yet.
Yeah. And really something solid, you know, something that is real and tangible, that, you know, we have some preliminary cost figures for.
Right. Yeah. So for example, it would spell out, okay, there's going to be a stage over here, or, you know, and a play structure, you know, whatever it is that we end up choosing, but it would be defining that on the space and what it is and where it would be, and whether it was feasible or not.
Exactly.
Okay,
Frank,
thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
You know, I'm a historian and a fundraiser. I'm not an engineer, but it seems like in order to get to some of these conceptual stages, we do need some basic engineering data of the load-bearing capacity and where it resides in the structure. And there may be other things, but I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I've always envisioned too, that we need engineers on whatever team applies to do this, to have that understanding, because otherwise there's just a lot of unknowns, because it is on top of a building, basically. It's on top of that, an entire structure.
We don't know what to conceptualize until we know what can stand there.
Yeah, I think that's actually part of the really, you know, part of the benefit of going out for a public RFP, where you have firms, professional firms that are going to apply. Part of what we're going to make sure that is written in the RFP is the knowledge that part of this parcel is on top of a parking structure.
Exactly.
And there are requirements around that. And our expectation is they're going to be able to speak to what the limitations are that those requirements will impose. And we're paying not an insignificant amount of money for this. And I think that's, that allows us to have that freedom. So Jen, you're up. And then I think we've got Ellen and Rita, and we'll try and wrap it up after that.
Yeah, no, this is a quick question, but I remember when Maura Thompson came and gave us, her presentation, and that I guess I want to clarify that data exists in terms of what the parking structure, the load it can bear, and what's possible and what's not possible. That's already in existence and something that we don't need to reinvent the wheel on, correct?
I think that we will be able to utilize what data they have and have the firm take that and apply it to the concepts. That's what I would envision. At least I don't. Yeah, personally, I just don't have full knowledge of what everything is that exists, and so. But I think that they will certainly take whatever data we can combine, we can gather from the city and DDA and utilize that. That would be in our best interest.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I felt like she gave us a really comprehensive. I just don't want to diminish the fact that she came and gave us a presentation around it, and it was pretty comprehensive. And that we do have existing resources that could accelerate that process a bit.
Definitely, yeah. I don't want to reinvent the wheel either. So I think we got Alice, then Rita, then Alan.
Mine's very quick. Following on Jen's comment about the existing drawings, I think sometimes, most of the time, I understand, there are complete design drawings to which construction is tied, and then there's as-built drawings, which take into account any changes that may have occurred in the interim, in the process of construction. Adds or removals. There are a number, when I see what is posted on the DDA, it looks like the original plan for construction rather than the as-built. So I think it would be important to make that distinction when it comes to the point where we need to offer that information.
I think the good thing about all this is that, I feel like when we do this, the city is going to be involved, and we will have good cooperation with all the entities. This is not spending $5 or $10. We're about to spend $120,000 to $140,000. This is going to be a pretty serious effort. So I feel confident we'll be able to get access to all that data. It won't be us per se who will ensure that the professional staff people have access to that. Rita, then Alan, you're up.
I was going to say something very similar to what Alice said, so I won't repeat that, except to say that we have an example of a change in implementation with respect to the irrigation system that was not placed as planned. So I just want to say that. So we do have to validate that what we have is what they said we were going to have. But I also want to call out a specific concept. And I know this is early, but I just want to say that the green roof concept really should be kept in mind, because I understand that the load bearing with respect to green roofs is engineered differently in a way to not require as much load as one might expect in other green spaces. So thanks.
Okay. Alan, you're up.
Excuse me. I tried to get more specific information from the DDA as to exactly what was the roof construction with an RFP, request for information, and was not really successful. That my observation of the construction did not really match what I was told was the fact of the construction. So there's some indeterminants there as to what is the roof and what it can bear and how it can be altered. But my preliminary investigation, talking with Joe O'Neill, who's a pretty competent builder, was that a civic center building is feasible over part of Library Lane. And I want to see that that possibility is explored in whatever is a request for proposals, and not that it simply be what is the can be done on the existing surface. And it is difficult that we have not had the actual development of the block group as a functioning partnership, so that the role of the First Martin that is in between Liberty Plaza and the Library Lane lot is more part of the actual discussion, that they play a critical role and they have their own building plans, and how their building can become part of a bridge between these two things is not simply a matter of our aspiration, it's a matter of their engagement in the process as well. And similarly, the plans of the library and its further development should be part of our consideration of how the center of the city develops, involving the indoor functions that are part of the aspiration of what a center of the city has to have. So I'm concerned that we have our other partners actually be partners in this process. But I do want to see that the feasibility of a civic center building hosting indoor four-season functions as part of the design exploration, and that the how we relate to the Noble House, which the Martin people have said they would be glad if that were incorporated into the commons if we can figure out how, and the possibility of the movement of the carriage house, which they would be happy because if that could be done, and the where that could go, possibly to the corner by Washington and Division, and also the concern of the university that the Jack London, that the Arthur Miller house on Jefferson Street be relocated, and perhaps that could be part of the overall scene of the development. So all those elements play into what we are looking for help in the design of, and I want to see the breadth of the request for proposals and exploration as to be the widest breadth of what are the potential possibilities. It may be narrowed down in terms of what is economically feasible, but I don't think that economics is really the limitation as much as the vision of something that is beautiful and functional for the city. And if that can be developed, then I'm sure that the wealth of the city can finance it, not out of a city bond, but out of the philanthropy of the goodwill in this town. So I continue to repeat that sense that what is the widest vision, and how do we get people to begin to engage that and see what they like and what they don't like, rather than start with limitations. This is only what we are considering.
I want to say I don't think we're starting with limitations. I think actually it's quite the opposite. We're going to try and start broad so that we can have a broad community engagement process run by professionals. So I actually feel like we're going to be pretty open in this. Why don't we go ahead and go into the next agenda item, which is the report outs from the various working groups. First, the comparable communities. There is an attachment here. I don't know, Frank or Rita, did you want to highlight a little bit about this?
Are you referring to the photographs?
I am.
No.
Yes, the Royal Oak Centennial Common images.
Yeah, this is now a few weeks ago. We had a family emergency that took us over to the east side of Detroit, and I realized that we were close to Royal Oak, and so we went over there as the sun was setting and just took a number of pictures. We really have we have information on that, and we've included it in our spreadsheet on the various communities that we've studied. But I just wanted to give people a sense of the space. And there are a number of activities there. One that I would point out is that the Royal Oak Library opens up right onto this park. And this involved tearing down an old city hall and so on to create this space. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay.
Feel free to keep talking. I'll just scroll through the images.
Yeah, just scroll through them. Wow. Okay, there's the library, and it just empties right out into the park. And there's some signage, very helpful signage about what's going on. This is some seating and chessboards, checkerboards. It's a little hard for me to estimate the size of the space. It's rectangular, but not. This was amazing. This is outside the library, a major piece of sculpture, and combined with a fountain, as you can see. And I think this project had some initial sticking points, but they were able to over time rally the community around this concept, and it was just dedicated less than a year ago. So it'd be interesting to watch how it evolves from a management standpoint as well. We're also becoming aware of a project in Chelsea which we probably would like to add to our study. This is an old industrial site. I actually knew the owner of the Federal Screw Works as a potential donor at the university. But right there on Main Street, south of the downtown, there's a community group working with the city to develop a park in Chelsea. So I think we may want to look at that. And they seem to have put together an amazing collection of people to work on it in the community. So we don't have a lot of detail on that, but it has been written up, I think, locally. There may be an MLive article or two on that. But I think that's about all I have, unless anybody else on the group wants to add to that.
Frank, I think it'd be a great idea to go to investigate, do the same sort of investigation we did in the other communities in Chelsea and take a look. I know that property you're talking about, and that's pretty interesting to hear.
Yeah. They seem to have some very talented people working on it with some professional background in these areas. So there's one guy in particular I want to recruit for us.
Any questions at all for Frank? All right. Well, why don't we just talk a little bit about the block partners? Heather, I don't know if you want to chime in a little bit about the survey that was sent out. I know that we worked on that, and Sarah cannot be here tonight, but she really spearheaded that effort. And, I know the questions that were asked because I took a look at the survey beforehand, but I don't know, Heather, if you have any comment at all. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I know you were involved too.
I wasn't very deeply involved. I did send out the survey on behalf of the group, but from what I understand, only 3 responses came in, and so I haven't spent time looking through those or analyzing those. So maybe somebody that was part of that working group has spent some time doing that. Can you speak on that?
I'm happy.
Jen,
I'm happy to speak to it. I think a sample size of 3 is pretty small. I will say that there was interest from the survey results that there was interest in being engaged and being part of the process, not a large, obviously, amount of commitment to specifics, but I think that there was from the folks that did respond that there was commitment to at least being part of the conversation and continuing it, which to me feels really hopeful. I think that just as being part of that group, sending it out over email and asking for that, I think we simplified the survey as much as we could, and we really gave a lot of thought to what questions really absolutely had to be asked and what feedback was most important to receive. I think that, to the extent that we're able to pick key constituents within that Black partner group and maybe, ask them questions, do a phone interview, something like that, that might yield a better result, which isn't, the topic that you asked me to speak on in terms of what the results were, but just, in my experience, I think that if we can pick a few people that we know have influence or, a greater expanse of property perhaps within that area and ask them directly through a conversation what their thoughts are, that might be a next step. But I don't want to speak for Sarah as the person spearheading the effort. I'll just say that we did get 3 positive results in terms of folks who wanted to continue the conversation with this group.
That's excellent. Alice and then Alan.
I'll try to be brief and relevant. 3 is how many of what number?
Uh,
If you give me a
15.
minute, I think I can look. Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was less than 20.
Okay. And okay, so they were emailed, these surveys, to one individual or to the organization, or?
To the main point of contact that we had, and Heather can speak to that probably better, but the
Okay.
main point of contact that we had for each organization, and they were emailed, Heather, tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe twice.
Right, and it came from the Council of the Commons email, so
Correct.
it wouldn't have appeared coming from me, but coming from this group.
And what about those questions? If Adam knows what they are, could we know what they are? The questions on the survey?
Yeah, I thought, I believe it was shared before, but we can absolutely circulate those and make sure that everyone has an access.
Am I the only one that missed the boat on that? Okay.
I don't remember, to be honest with you. I know I took a quick peek at them right before they went out, but outside of that, I don't. I think they were shared though, if I recall correctly.
Well,
It would be good to share them again. I don't recall them.
yeah, I
Yep.
think
We
more
can do that.
than, I think a few of us missed the boat.
We can do that. That is fine.
Okay.
Ellen?
Yeah, the questions were shared. They were very general. We did decide, there was initially a question about problems people might have felt around Liberty Plaza, and we decided to take that question out. What are do you have any future development plans that might impact the area? What do you think might be helpful? What do you know that is going on that is of interest? Very general questions. Of the 3 responses, I think the consistent was for public restroom. In our discussion, we decided initially to restrict who we were putting this out to the initial businesses or major institutions, with a view that there be a subsequent, more extensive inquiry to the wider group of our neighbors on and around the block. And when Sarah put out the request, did anybody have any further ideas for our next stage and what recommendations we wanted to put forward? I made a number of suggestions, and one in which I will just go through quickly, that we should expand the survey outreach to include the residents and employees we can identify and the owners of the property, on the block not included in the initial survey outreach, and that we should publish and expand the list of potential block partners to all the block partners so that people can see themselves as part of a potential partnership, and that we should have some regular monthly Commons newsletter or report as to what's going on this block to those potential partners so that they can begin to see themselves as part of a process. And that we should invite the potential partners into the activities that we know are going on, such as those things that were referenced in Liberty Plaza, or I should let everyone know, the September 21 International Day of Peace activity on the library lot, and the October 2 garden celebration on the library lane lot. And that we should solicit from the potential partners their ideas to be explored in the request for proposals, and that we should share the request for proposals with all the block partners when it is drafted, and that we should ask them for money contributions to help in the development of the request for proposals, and that we should request a formal discussion and meeting with the First Martin Corporation to discuss their plans and how to coordinate. And similarly, number 9, in this, we should request a formal meeting with the district library board to discuss their development plans and how it can intersect. As near as I know, the library board has never had a discussion of this at their board, though they have had an opinion. And finally, that we should host some kind of a community meeting and invite all the potential block partners and have some good food and some enticements and a facilitation team to begin to get people to talk together and recognize we are in some group together around the center of the city. So I put that onto the agenda for the continuation of this block partners group, but we haven't met subsequently. The only thing we have done is the maybe 4 questions that went out on the survey that we're still getting feedback from, and it would be easy for Heather or me to find back in the record what those survey questions were. But I do note that the difficult question about what difficulties people had around Liberty Plaza, we took out. So those are in the what recommendations come out of this committee. That sort of in process, I would say, in the committee that I would suggest we all consider as beneficial in including the block partnership.
Okay. Thanks, Alan. I don't know. We've got Jen and Alice. Do you have your hands up still, or?
Yes.
Yeah, I just have a really quick note. I would say that we did say what could be changed or enhanced anywhere on the block. So I do think that that invites the question around, what challenges exist. But, just to clarify on, some of Alan's comments, our charge was to take the temperature of the block partners. So some of the suggestions that you've made, not at all to diminish them, but were not part of our charge. And so just to extrapolate in terms of this group did do what we were asked to do and did it, by consensus of the group and, with thoughtfulness. And so what next steps might exist, I think I want to make sure that we're very clear in the distinction of the fact that a good faith effort was put forth to actually accomplish what we were asked to do, and next steps should be handled separately.
Absolutely, Jen. And my comments actually were prefaced by a note that the task of putting together the block group and the partnership and getting it was a task of the city administrator. And through 3 city administrators, that task has not really been done. There's been no effort to actually convene a meeting and a gathering of the block partners, potential or actual, and if that's not being done by the city administrator, then how do we in the Council of the Commons begin to take that on? And those recommendations that I suggested are how we might take on that function in collaboration with the city administrator, but it needs to be done.
Okay. Alice, you've got your
Yes,
hand up.
I want to thank Jen and Sarah and Alan for this first effort. And I think many of the things that Alan is speaking to could be part of what the engagement of first phase of an RFP would do, and that we should not go so far as to try to organize that, but we can provide ourselves a sort of a superficial start and let the pros use their time. And I mean, they're capable of organizing a dinner, but that might not be the right way to go, or the necessary way to go. I want to move to what Alan referred to, perhaps, I'm not sure, but Mr. Dohoney has been doing these listening sessions. And I don't know how many of us have listened to any of them. I listened to one, the last one, which seemed to have lost some steam, partly because they had technical difficulties at the beginning of it. It was interesting to hear what people not connected with the center of the city were saying. But the one thing that impressed me, not from what they were doing, but from what they were saying, is that the vision of what's important downtown is it definitely has no center as far as they can express, but they were talking about the connection to the river, the connection to other parks, the connection by bike paths, and so forth. That was really kind of inspiring. If I had because I wasn't participating, I was thinking more about what we do on this mission, and I think that would be helpful for us to start thinking a little more expansively as to what this could do for every other part that they're talking about, like the connection to the river, like the transportation system, like the bikeways and the information hubs and things like that. And not to try to do it ourselves in every meeting that we have, but to try to support these, try to develop what supports our efforts rather than to try to do everything ourselves. That's just sort of, one thing I was sort of shocked at how public restrooms were like, it seemed like there was a concerted effort among a big group of people to get public restrooms at the center of the city or everywhere. I don't know. I was like shocked. What did they? We're gonna have porta potties instead of trees. But anyway, so it's very complicated, and I think that it may sound like a small amount to have 3 responses out of say 20, but it's a start, and that's probably where we want to go. Is just to do a start, to invite input and not decide what they can do for us, but to figure out how they fit into the big picture. So that's why I wanted to say that, because I've recently listened to this, to one of the sessions. And I think it also said a little bit about how Mr. Dohoney is going about things, because he was taking notes and he was very much appreciated. Certain people had a lot to say about being thankful that they were asked and that they were listened to. So I think we should listen more than we talk. So I will quit talking now.
All right. Excellent. So thank you to Jen and Alan and Sarah and Heather for that effort. Our next working group we have is sort of the fundraising piece, and I think Frank and I have been meeting sort of offline around that. I don't know that we really have a formal update unless there's something you want to add, Frank. But I'm fine with sort of tabling it too. It's up to you.
I just might mention that just kind of summarize, we have $40,000 in the city allocation. We have $20,000 commitment from Library Green. And we're working on an additional 30,000 to get us to 90,000 of the 120. So if you can follow me on that. And many of you may know this. I don't know if this happened before the last meeting or not, but we have 2 additional commitments totaling 2 $5,000 commitments. This would give us a total of $70,000. One of those $5,000 commitments is conditional on us raising the remaining 20 of that $30,000 piece that we're working on. And that particular one, the one that's matching if we can raise the additional 20, is anonymous, but the other one is from the Buer family through Jamie Buer of Buer Park and Buer Manufacturing. It's been a longstanding family in the community, and he was quite interested in helping us and to have it be made public. And I think there are others we can now pursue because Jamie has stepped forward. So there's work to be done, and I think we can make some real progress in the next month or so on this. That's at least the feeling. I think you share that, Adam.
I do. Yep. I feel hopeful. Momentum begets momentum on fundraising.
Yeah.
And so I feel good about that.
Okay. Good.
Okay. And then the last working group, I think that we've already talked about the RFP. So the last working group really is related to the near-term activation. And I will say, I know that there is a group of folks who have been meeting, and some are participants in the initiating committee, and some are maybe not participants in the initiating committee, but they're meeting with the initiating committee. And I know that there's a plan being developed, from what I understand, around near-term activation, a series of suggestions. I think we're going to see it as a requested action item in our September meeting. I would just like to say, I feel really good about this plan right now. I haven't seen it yet, but certainly have heard about some of the discussions, and I think it's an opportunity to try and feel a little more comprehensive and about what that approach would look like. And so I don't think we even really have anything today about that. I certainly don't. I'm not involved in putting the plan together, but I think we're going to hear about it shortly. And I think that's a good idea. I don't know if anyone else has any comments around that piece.
Yeah, well, I would add that the initiating committee has been joined by an amazing energy from Caitlin Olmsted Phillips, who's an Ann Arbor real estate ordinary person who lives in Ann Arbor, but is part of the Olmsted family and Olmsted Foundation, who generated Central Park in New York and many other parks, including design for the Ann Arbor Park system from the Olmsted family. And she has been developing a activation plan that she's going to share with us in the September meeting, as I understand. And we'll be all blessed to hear her work and her energy. She is quite an addition to our presence. And in terms of most near-term activation, I did mention that September 21 is the United Nations International Day of Peace. Wednesday, September 21, we'll have a program on the Library Lane then. And I believe the garden green team is going to have a celebration of the garden work on the 2nd of October. So everyone is invited to that and see what fun we can have and how to make it all better.
Thank you, Alan. All right. The next item is next agenda items. I mentioned one. I don't know if any folks have others they would like to add to the agenda at this point in time. Certainly can add them as we have been between meetings as well. Are there any items that we want to flag for today?
There is one that came up from the Office of Sustainability. They would like to meet with us next meeting to talk about the potential for EV charging stations along Library Lane.
All right, very cool. I take it that will be Dr. Stoltz?
That will be Simi Barr, who
Okay.
is in charge of the electric vehicle program in OSI.
Excellent. I've seen Semi at the Green Fair. All right, any other items at all? Okay, all right. In that case, I think it's public comment again. Heather, do we have any other members of the public?
It's Robert Wick.
Hello
Should be able
again.
to talk. There you go.
I'm still here.
Hi.
Your faithful audience of at least one gives you kudos and acknowledges your work. Thank you for a great meeting, you guys. I'm really encouraged by the openness that you're sharing together and the collaboration that's building right here in this group. Also, I'm encouraged to hear that you've stepped away from the linear track of doing a park by the way the parks have always been done. Put them in the neighborhood, run them by pack, do their procedure, and have them be that way. That's great. Ann Arbor's got a great parks program. But this is more than a park. It is a central park and a civic center commons, however you determine that. And I'm encouraged to hear, Adam, that there's, you're following a process of steps that's phased. And I really encourage that. We laid that out as well in the RFI, that this groundwork of steps builds on towards a future. And I would also think that, that idea that you're working on with the, one of your takeaways is to actually write a proposal through the Council of Commons to the City Council that you would suggest, here's an outline of an idea for governance for this thing. Just be positing a possibility for that. So I'd encourage you to take that action. And also, this group has the ability to begin to sort the things that you have heard. Certainly the professionals will guide you through that. But again, like with the idea of the shared governance, I believe that the future of this development will be an unfolding process of gradual solutions that will come over time, probably through a series of professionals, not just a single linear team, as good as they might be. Your engagement with First Martin and their professionals, with the library's future, we heard from Alan, what the other groups that we talked about in RFI was more akin to what Alice said, which is engage the Huron River watershed, talk with the the tree line pathways, the bicycle group, the DDA's downtown infrastructure planning. Try to engage as many of those to become partners with you. This is an example of what's happened with the initiating committee. You will meet Caitlin Olmsted Phillips, who is a force, and she'll be showing you a structure of how to hang your pieces onto something. There are also others who have been drawn to the initiating committee that you don't know yet, who are quite powerful individuals. And the initiating committee, thankful to Alice and others that we need to clarify that relationship, because the initiating committee is not other. It is you, it is with you, it is the spirit of the commons, and serves the exact same goals and purpose that we all have together. The Library Green Conservancy, the initiating committee, the Council of the Commons, and the broader community are all one community. And so let's get that cleared up so the language is clear and inspiring, so the contentions just go away and we move forward together. And you guys are on a great track to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Any other members?
Sorry, you cut out a little bit, but I think you asked if there's any other members of the public, and there are not.
Yes. All right, excellent. In that case, the only item on the agenda is adjournment. And could we have a motion to adjourn?
In record time, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we're doing pretty good. I think we might have beat our timing once on this, by the way. I felt We hit the 9 o'clock mark once. We're 9:03, pretty close.
Pretty good.
3:03 in the morning here in Burgundy.
It's your
Alan?
choice, Alan.
You are a trooper, Ellen. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Have a nice evening,
Have a
everyone.
nice night,
Get
everyone.
some sleep,